please stand? Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah.
Counsel Leahy. Counsel Leary.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Here.
Counsel Milanazzo.
Here.
9 present.
Council Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for a remarkable woman, Eileen Rourke Golden, a member of a well-known family and resident of the Centerville section of the city. Mrs. Golden attended St. Patrick's Grammar School and was a graduate of Keith Hall, class of 1958. Eager to further her education, she went on to earn her certificate in radiology from Northeastern University in Boston. Before retiring, Eileen was employed as an X-ray technician at the former St. John's Hospital in Lowell for over 40 years. Following her retirement, she was a volunteer coordinator at the Lowell Senior Center. I would always have the pleasure of seeing her there and enjoying many a conversation over politics. She was delightful, and everyone at the Senior Center just loved her immensely. She was everybody's friend. Mrs. Golden is survived by 2 daughters, Karen Golden and Eileen Lee Trott, and a husband, Kenneth. Her son, the Honorable State Representative Thomas Tipper Golden, and his wife, Joanne. 4 grandchildren, Kenneth and Sean Trott, Abigail and Lillian Golden. A mother, a sister, Mary E. Betty Rourke. 2 brothers, Stephen and his wife, Mary Jo. Christopher Rourke and his wife, Nancy. Her very dear friend, Sharon Close, and her husband, Ron. Eileen was also mother of the late Mary Beth Golden, sister of the late Andrew Rourke, and former wife of the late Thomas Golden Sr. We offer our sympathy to her family, relatives, and her many friends. She was golden, for sure, and she will be truly missed. Now I want to recognize my colleague, Danny Rourke, to finish the rest. Thank you. Danny?
Thank you, Council Mercier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Rourke Golden family, we'd like to thank the manager, his team, Mr. Mayor, the City Council, and especially the Lowell Police Department, who went out of their way, everybody, to make the grieving process as easy as possible. We had a tremendous send-off on St. Patrick's Day and on this past Saturday. On Tuesday nights, during council meetings, my phone was always on, and I'd always receive a text or 10 from Eileen. She always spoke very highly of my colleagues on the council. Mr. Manager, once in a while she'd give you a hard time, but all in all, she was very, very supportive of, again, the council, the administration, and she was very, very excited about the future of Lowell going forward. Wednesday morning coffees, we meet a couple of times a month and discuss the night before's meeting down at the senior center, and there was more than one time when Councilor Mercier would join us in talking about Lowell. She loved her city, she loved her family. Being an Irish kid from a large family, I was very lucky enough to have all 4 of my grandparents growing up, and I got to know them. And as I got older, I started losing them one by one, and then Eileen became sort of a third grandmother for me. Giving advice and just talking not only about the politics and on the city, but just just life in general. So once again, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, and my colleagues on the council, thank you very much for your support and helping us get through this time.
Thank you, Councilman.
Just, Mayor, real quick, if I could have one too, I apologize.
Sorry.
Just for a good friend of mine, a good friend of the Highlands, Stevie O'Brien, who passed away at age 61, way too young. He left a wife, Cheryl O'Brien, who works for the Lowell Public Schools, and his brother, Paul, who works for the Massachusetts court system. Stevie grew up on the Highlands on Campbell Drive. His parents still live in that same house. It's one of the most horrific things to bury your child when it's just way too young. Steve left 2 children, 2 grandchildren, 4 brothers, a good family. He resided in Pawtuckaville at the time of his death. He loved golf, he loved life. And he's a true friend of mine and someone I'm going to truly miss. And then all of his friends and family are devastated. But I think they've got a good support system, and I just wanted to share that with the city of Lowell. They're a really good family. And if you ever met Steve, you just couldn't help but like him. He was just one of them, a true, genuine, awesome guy. Thank you.
First order of business is the minutes of the City Council meeting of March 7th, the Neighborhood Subcommittee meeting of March 13th for acceptance. We have motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Samaras. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Being before 7 o'clock, we'll skip over the public hearings and go to the communications from the city manager. We have items A through E this evening, and the first one is the pedestrian crossing on Andover Street. Is there any discussion regarding that item? Council Samaras.
I just want to thank the city manager for this report. Mr. Manager, can you tell us the approximate time of these signs will be put up, the lights will be put up?
Yes, I expect that we'll be able to do it, well, as spring is upon us, I keep saying we'll do it in the spring, but as the snow is gone, we'll stop putting them up. So
Okay,
they'll be going up imminently.
All right, so that's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a good thing. We've talked about the crosswalk, we've talked about the speeding that occurs on Andover Street, but I think with these lights, it will certainly make the crosswalk a much safer place. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on item A? Councilor Leary.
Just quickly, I know this was a motion that basically the entire council put on. Just want to thank Council Milonazo as well, because I think a lot of this idea came from the community he works in, but thank you to the administration for getting this done. I think it'll go a long way of hopefully resolving issues that have been there way too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with my colleagues. This has been a long time coming. This has been discussed with previous councils as well, not just this one. So it's going to be good to see those improvements there for that safety reasons. It's Andover Street's traffic is just growing by the day, and it's really not much we can do about that aspect, but we can slow it down and make it a little safer. And improvements to the tune of about $60,000 with a crosswalk and signage and lights will certainly help that. So I want to thank Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager and his administration for this commitment to safety in that area. That's certainly deserving. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I also want to say thank you for this. I did want to ask the manager, very grateful for this. Any chance in the future if we can do one further up the road? We were looking to try to do something around Wentworth Ave or so.
The real problem we have there is we try to do them with solar power,
Yeah.
but because of the tree canopy, it's difficult to do. So we'll look into that, but we're going to have to locate some electrical to
Okay.
do it, because you can't do it with solar power.
All right. Did they look at going from Douglas to Arbor and it's?
That's what we're going to, yeah.
Okay, and it's still too many trees right there too? Okay. All right.
Don't want to start taking down all the
No,
trees.
no, we don't want to stop that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott.
I just want to reiterate some of the comments of my colleagues. I think this is a huge step to slowing down some traffic on that road. And I can remember Mr. Darlington coming with petition in that area, and I think this is really the beginning of traffic management on that road. And while it is $60,000, it's somewhat sustainable with the solar lights, and more importantly, it's going to provide some safety for people. You can't cross that road now, and I think this goes a long way to helping that. So thank you for sticking with it, and I think the neighborhood's going to be very grateful as well. So I'm sure we've all filed this, but I can remember filing this motion a few times, and we're finally here. So thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on item A? If not, we'll move on to item B, which is the Lewis Street stop sign. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did make this motion, and the transportation engineer said that the concerns for pedestrian safety are legitimate there, but they do not see that a stop sign would be warranted due to various factors, and I kind of agree with that. But they suggested placing a crosswalk and warning signs at this location, so if we could do that, that would be helpful to the people over there that are getting out of the Transfiguration Church, and, the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church, walking across the street. It's very narrow there, so thank you. That'd be nice. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on item B? If not, we'll move on to item C, which is the sidewalk snow removal. Any discussion regarding item C? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, thank you for the report. It does show that we wrote quite a few warnings, and we did collect some fines. So I appreciate this. With the last snowstorm, I just want to make sure that we, we should sit down and try to do, just make sure that for next year, that everybody is on board. Businesses, neighborhood residents, things like that. I know that last snowstorm was pretty tough, but still, there's some places around the Immaculate Conception Church, the school, and a few other sidewalks where people just, figure they don't have to shovel the walks, but they really need to. So, we can help them out, try to give them suggestions or whatever, but, for next winter, we really need to get people downtown, especially the businesses downtown. It can't be all up to us to clear the sidewalks. I mean, they're gonna help us in front of their businesses and widen it up and help us get those sidewalks open and salted for their customers, as well as the students and everyone else that's downtown. So, thank you for the report, and, it's a work in progress, so we'll continue with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion regarding item C? If not, we'll move on to item D, which is the status of the Luz Building on Gorham Street. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate the response from Director of Deputy Services, Inspectional Services, Eric Slagle. And Mr. Mayor, through you, I can have Eric Slagle come up to the podium. So, Mr. Slagle, seems like this building is finally set for demolition, but just a little history on it. Who's the owner? Because, I've received a number of complaints. So having this in the middle of the school grounds is just not a good example. I'm sure you agree with that, but just for an update, just to see how soon we can get that situation rectified.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the council. The property at 1118, 1120 Gorham Street, that I'm sure everybody's familiar with, former Les Granite Building. The current owner is nowhere to be found, and therefore, unfortunately, judgment-proof. We have issued numerous fines and citations against the property. There's a demolition order that's been issued by the building commissioner, but being unable to get our hooks into the property owner means that absent the city taking on a demolition ourselves and paying for it, we are kind of waiting for a new owner to come in. A new owner has completed a purchase and sale, is in the process of purchasing the building, so our anticipation is that sometime, hopefully this spring, they will come in and pull a demolition order. and have the building down, hopefully sometime this summer. We don't know any future plans at this point, but right now, for kind of public safety reasons, we'd like to have the building.
Okay, but you do know that the property is being transferred anyway, transfer of ownership? You know that that's happening?
Again, my understanding is that they've signed a purchase and sale, and they're working on getting a closing.
Okay.
It's a private transaction, so we don't have any other information than that, but that's our understanding.
Okay, all right, Eric, we'll continue to monitor it, and I'll ask for another update in about 3 months, okay? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Counselor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just a little bit baffled about how the owner is not anywhere to be found, and yet there's a purchase and sale agreement. How is that? Is the city owning that property now, or what's happening?
No, the city doesn't own that property, and unfortunately, we can't find the owner. It doesn't mean that the owner is not findable. We just don't have any
Well, the people that are
ways to-
purchasing that property must have found them, right?
or an attorney, and
But we can't find them, though, right?
well, I believe there's an attorney who's completing the sale for the current property owner. But again, it's a private transaction, so we're not privy to all the details. We do know that there's an individual who's come in with the purchase and sale agreement and indicated that they're going to be the future owner of the building.
So just keep us,
Absolutely, and like I said, we have been citing them and finding them. There's liens on the property for the citations, and an order for
I
demolition.
think it's incumbent upon the city to know who the owner is, and I don't think it's a secret.
Well, again, it's not a, we know who's on the deed. We just can't, that person doesn't live in Lowell, and we don't have the address that we have is not a valid address. So we have no way of getting that person.
Isn't that property in foreclosure? If it's in foreclosure, wouldn't you think that we would have a way as a city to collect something if it's going to be sold off? Should that previous owner get the money for the sale when he owes the city all this money?
Well, we actually have liens on the property, so we would get paid at the closing.
Okay, well,
So
I hope we do.
That
Thank you.
was our plan. We made sure that we got
Thank
the
you.
liens on the property.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Leahy?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Slade. What would the restrictions be on that property where it's basically on school property? Are there restrictions on what can go there?
Currently, that property is a two-family. At the time of the demolition, they will in all likelihood be allowed to reconstruct a two-family on the site, as long as they don't go outside the current envelope of the building and they get city's approval before the demolition.
But it wouldn't be any type of a undesirable business on a school property, right?
Well, technically, it's not on the school property, it's just kind of surrounded by a school property, but,
Does that go through the zoning again?
well, it all depends on what they try to do. I didn't look at the specific zoning district, so I'm not sure whether it's a mixed-use district that would allow some sort of retail on the site. The fact that it used to be a retail location, it may very well be a mixed-use district, but at this time, they can do anything that's
If it's not too much trouble,
legal.
could you just get us that information if you could ask
Absolutely.
for it?
Certainly.
Through the manager. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Elliott?
So just to follow up on Council Lee, so, I mean, I guess the concern is it's so close to the school. Can one of these, can an organization, a private vendor come in and set up some educational institution or a program that has an educational component to it, i.e. a group home or something of that nature?
Well, currently under
Is it big enough?
it depends on it all depends on the size right now. The use that would be grandfathered is the two-family use that was there
Right.
now. If they wanted to put in a new structure, they'd have to comply with all the current zoning
Parking,
ordinances,
zoning.
parking requirements, and any kind of restrictions in the table of uses. Educational purposes are protected, both in our zoning and in the state statute. So something that's a nonprofit educational use is allowed in any district in any municipality. You're allowed to do that anywhere. So it's possible that something can come in there, but they'd still have to comply with the dimensional requirements of the law.
So you talked about retail, and I guess the concern would be, a retail spot for, all the discussion about marijuana and marijuana sales. Is that a likeliness or possibility?
Well, I think at this point in time, it's probably a little bit preliminary to discuss that. Right now, under our current zoning, you would not be able to do anything of that type
Right.
there because of the distance to the school.
Right, and I filed a motion to have the manager look into zones But until that takes place, and hopefully this will be delayed, nothing can take place there.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're all set, Counsel? Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Counsel Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think I drove by this on Saturday on the way to St. Patrick's Cemetery, and I could have swore the building was open, and people were going in and out. It's the building where they have the picture of the monument in the front, the maybe 6-foot monument, and then next door. Because I remember the response I saw on the agenda, but I mean, I was pretty positive there was activity in that building this past Saturday. The one where they actually do the sales of the
That's the
sales
sales
of.
office.
Okay.
This is a little further down, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion?
But, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, wouldn't the owner be the same person?
No, no.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the 77th Street. Counsel Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, thank you for the response, and I followed up with Mr. McGovern. I received an email from them, so she's been dealing with Mark Young. They believe they only got compensated for 1 year, but it's gone back to 2011, so we were wondering what might happen from 2011 to 14 or 15, if we could just follow up on that, so.
They were all abated, and they received a letter on March 3rd, 2017, that was the case. So all of the charges have been abated.
Okay, could she,
She can call our office.
yeah, because it was a little bit hard to follow.
Yeah.
And it
I
should
know,
have been
what
a little
happened
bit
was,
more
is
than that, so.
what they did is they abated all of the charges, but they kept the account open, so it accumulated some more charges. Then they had to abate that charge also.
Okay.
So it could be confusing, but
Yeah,
if she
yeah.
calls our office, make sure she asks for Mr. McGovern, and he'll
Yeah.
take care of it.
Okay.
All right?
All right, and I'll have her double check with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the communications from the manager and place them on file by Counsel Elliott, second by Counsel Mercia. Discussion on the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, on the communications, we have a communication from with Planning Board recommendation regarding amending the zoning ordinance 4.3, accessory uses, 4.3.5, storage of unregistered vehicles at residential properties. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the communication, place it on file by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Samaras. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a step in the right direction to allow, and we've all received a number of complaints about whether they have a college student away at school, but this just allows one vehicle to be stored on the premises, because right now you cannot store any. But it has to be covered, and there are some other stipulations. It has to be on hot top, impervious surface. And I think that's great. My question is, it goes down to the automotive repair facilities. Is there currently, whether through you, Mr. Manager, or the solicitor, are there any provisions currently in the ordinance that govern automotive repair and how many vehicles can be stored on the premises? This says 3 for every bay that they have. Or to Mr. Slagle, is there anything, or is this new language?
Currently, there's no language discussing the commercial storage of unregistered vehicles.
Okay.
And this is an attempt to put a limit on the amount of unregistered vehicles that a auto repair shop can have on the premises, depending on how many bays there are. So you can't have 50 unregistered cars next to your one-bay garage.
Well, I like this because there are a number of facilities that have lots of junk cars, I would say junk cars, whether they're using them for parts or not, that exceed this, and I think it's fair. So this is they're not gonna be grandfathered, correct?
No, they're not going to be grandfathered. Right now, there's no indication that they would be allowed to have any, I think is the issue. There's no allowance for an unregistered vehicle on a auto repair shop right now. So this would allow them to have a certain amount, and we would hold all the shops to that amount.
And I know there is a provision for some of this, and it's just the last statement that I have some concern with, is that stowed vehicle lots may also store unregistered vehicles, but must be screened in. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
So for instance, the tow companies that have contracts with the city or private tow companies typically tow them
They
to
must be running vehicles? I mean, they have to be, unless they were in an accident.
Right, right. I mean, they store unregistered vehicles, both running and not running, again, if it's been in an accident and they're towed to that lot.
Okay.
This just specifies that they're allowed to store unregistered vehicles, and they have to have them screened in a lot that's screened as required in another part of the ordinance.
All right, well, it's a step in the right direction, because there are a number of businesses that really just don't, they don't abide by it, and I don't even think they operate, but they just store, vehicles that don't run. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I would just want to point out that there'll be a public hearing on this in the next matter in 4 minutes. So, so anyways, the chair would entertain a motion to accept this
Well, I
communication.
got my questions out of the way, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
and place it on file. That motion's on the floor. Further discussion on the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next item is a communication from the planning board, a recommendation regarding amending the zoning ordinance, section 11.3, special permits, subsection 11.3.1, special permit granting authority, amending Article 12 and table of uses. Chair would entertain a motion to accept the communication placed on file by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Roque. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next item before us is a vote from the city manager, vote approving the filing of special legislation which authorizes the use of certain parcels of land as described more particularly below, which currently contain public fields, athletic facilities, and facilities pertaining thereto for the purposes of constructing a new high school and for other school-related and incidental purposes thereto. Councilor Milonazo?
I'm going to object to the second reading, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have an objection to the second reading, and so moving on, we have, under ordinances from the city manager, we have an ordinance regarding the traffic.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, or point
Yes.
of information? Okay, there was an objection to the second reading, so what exactly does that?
The objection to the second reading,
Yeah,
any councilor has the prerogative of objecting to the second reading, which then puts off the second reading until the next meeting. And so.
does
that's
it
the way-
require just one objection or two?
Just requires one objection. It's not suspension of the rules or anything, it's just an objection to
Okay, thank you,
it's Rule 28 in your
thank you.
manual.
So then, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
so then next week, if it comes back before us, you can't use the objection to the second reading again, right?
I suppose you could object to the third reading, Council, but there is no third reading, so yeah, you're correct, you can't. You can object once to the second reading.
Could I?
It would be normal it would be normal to have the first reading and then have the second reading next week. But what we do a lot of times is do the second reading, if there's no objection, all at one session. So we do that as a matter of course, and seldom does anybody object to that, but you can object to that, just like what we usually do is waive the full first reading, but if any council wanted to, they could ask for a full reading of the matter.
So, Mr. Mayor, could I ask the maker of that request why he,
No, there's no debate on that, Counselor. I would think that you would know that. It's just, that's
I
the
know
rules,
that,
Rule
but I
28.
tried to get
Yeah.
away with it, but it didn't work. I thought you didn't know it. Sorry.
Nice
Nice
try.
try.
Nice try, Counselor. All right, next we have under ordinances from the city manager. Okay, the first one is the 60-day order from the city manager has asked that that be withdrawn. So item 7.1 will be withdrawn from the agenda. And that brings us to 7 o'clock, and so we'll go to the public hearings. And the first public hearing is to amend Chapter 9, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 9 entitled Boards, Commissions, and Committees. So we'll open up the hearing for those who wish to speak in favor. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Kevin Coughlin. I'm the Deputy Director of the DPD, and I'd like to be in favor of this ordinance. For three reasons, the council is very positive in moving forward in the creation of this diversity council. First, this is an extension of previous council motions and votes establishing presentations of flags from Lowell residents and their countries in the JFK Plaza and celebrating their citizenship and diversity within the city. Second, this is an extension of the multi-year tradition conducted through the Office of the Mayor for the flag raisings in the countries of origin, for each city resident, ethnic group, requesting to have a formal ceremony in their flag flown on the secondary flagpole in front of City Hall. And third, this is an extension of the ongoing goodwill generated by this council and the ethnic recognition and appreciation generated through the city events and the national park events such as the National Folk Festival. We also feel at this time that this can be used to enhance the communication to all residents in the city. A good example of this would be the Working Cities model that's presently now in effect, and a good example for that going forward would be communication on the high school. As we look to the incidentals and the specifics of creating a diversity council, we had a great appreciation for the work that the school committee also does and the work of the school system. They track over 50 languages in their school system on a day-to-day basis. Even today, in conversations with the school system, they brought in 6 new languages for students, English as a second language. The most recent today was a new student from Guatemala. So the city is alive and well in its ethnic diversity and the inclusion and the welcoming that the city has provided to them. The Ethnic Council for defining of ethnicity is the main point for the council, and there are several points through appointment and membership by the city manager that will follow in the various organization of this council. I think the individuals from each ethnic group that are appointed will feel that they are given a voice. It is to reach out to all individuals in the city and allow them all to feel that they have an inclusive voice and to receive the goodwill and the good communication from this council and from the city administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor, in favor, in favor. Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on behalf of the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition, opposition, in opposition. Hearing none, we'll close the hearing and open it up to the City Council. Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. No, I just want to thank Kevin for all of his work in establishing this diversity council. He did a yeoman's job in this effort. You know, as a city, a very diverse city, we talk about ensuring that everybody has a voice in this city, and what better way than to set up a diversity council whose purpose is to talk about and discuss the quality of life issues that are in this city. But I think what's important about this not only is seeking to get the voices of those who are new to this community, but also seeking to ensure that those who have lived in this community for many generations also have a voice. It's about coming together for the common good of this city, and I'm just pleased that we have reached this level at this particular point and look forward to organizing the Diversity Council. It talks about also that we'd have a subcommittee on diversity. So, Mr. Mayor, if you could work on that, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve then by
Yes.
Councilor Samaras?
Thank you.
Second by Councilor Rourke. All right, any further discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Next public hearing is an ordinance to amend Chapter 290. Regarding zoning entitled unregistered vehicles and to amend Section 4.3 and 5.2. We'll open up the hearing for those who wish to speak in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Eric Slagle. I'm the Director of Development Services, and I am here to speak in favor of the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance. This particular amendment, as has been mentioned earlier in the meeting, deals with the limited registration of unregistered vehicles for residential properties. Specifically, it allows one unregistered vehicle that's in working condition to be registered annually through a permitting process with the city and allowed to be maintained on an impervious surface on a residential lot. As the council is aware, we've had many times in the past had challenges with individuals who were keeping vehicles for college students or members of the family who are in the military and did not wish to register them and kind of take on the insurance and registration costs for the time that the vehicles were not being used. This allows a pathway for those individuals to have a legal unregistered vehicle on their lot. There are a list of requirements in the ordinance. I do want to note that this ordinance was given a unanimous thumbs up from the planning board. They did express a concern about having a requirement that the vehicles be tarped. So I do think that's an open question for the council as to whether or not they want to maintain that requirement, which is requirement number 2, or remove that requirement. I do know that there's arguments on both sides as to whether or not that is an appropriate requirement to have for an unregistered vehicle for aesthetic purposes. But overall, I do think this is an appropriate step, as the council earlier mentioned, in the right direction to having a legal permitting process for one single vehicle while still being able to enforce against individuals who have multiple vehicles or against businesses that are overburdening their properties with unregistered vehicles.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in favor?
Deb Forgione, Pawtuckaville Citizen Council. Good to be on the same side tonight. I just wanted to put a spotlight on what's on this ordinance because it's one of many of the 14 pages that was given to the city council through the city. So there's suggestions. And I just wanted the city council to know that the process has been inclusive of the public, meaning there have been 2 televised zoning city council zoning subcommittees. There was a televised planning board. There was a citywide neighborhood council. It wasn't televised. So from the 14 pages that you were given, there has been a process where there is and has been public input. So this ordinance, as read, was in open with the public, and everyone had a chance to speak about it. So I feel as though it is very, very thorough. The TARP omission only came up at the planning board. There was only one moment where someone had brought that up as an opposition. So if you do change that tonight, that was not an option. It was vetted and talked about that it always was going to have the TARP through 4 televised meetings. So tonight, if you change that, I just want you to know that all the public meetings always had that included. So if you're gonna take that out, it's one of those items that people will be surprised that it's out because every meeting we had, it was in. So with that said, for every reason that he mentioned, we do support having that ordinance changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, close the hearing on behalf of the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition, opposition, in opposition. Hearing none, close the hearing and open it up to the City Council. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This should have been implemented long, long ago, and I'm glad that it's finally coming before us this evening. Better late than never. But this ordinance is a matter of fairness, because through the years, I've had calls from people whose sons were in the military. Someone passed away in the family, and they couldn't, register it, but they wanted to sell it, but not in that quick order. So there's many circumstances that arise in family lives that one car needs to be addressed, and so this is good. I'm so happy, and I make a motion to approve.
So we have a motion approved, second by Counsel Leahy. Any further discussion on the motion? Counsel Leahy.
Sure. So I just had a question on the number 5 through Uta, Mr. Slagle. Is there any bending on the, why can't we repair them while have them on the property? If it's just one car and you keep it and you follow all the regulations, why would it be so bad if you fixed it up before you registered it?
No, while I understand the concern, the problem that we have is enforceability, and specifically enforcing the not allowing people to have private, illegal under-the-table auto repair in a residential property. We get vast amounts of complaints coming through my office about people operating, Audi body shops in their front driveway, and that is a extremely burdensome door to open onto a neighborhood, because my inspector, it's very difficult for my inspector to, from the street, determine whether or not that's your car or that's Councilor Leary's car that you're working on for cash under the table. One of them is a zoning violation and is illegal. The other one, if we change this, would be allowed. There's nothing that prevents someone from having it in a garage, away from public view and doing work for a vehicle in a garage. There's nothing that allows you to do, this is not about routine maintenance. You can change your oil in your vehicle. This just doesn't allow you to be doing vehicle repairs in a residential neighborhood. And we had to weigh the costs and the benefits, and at the end of the day, we believe that the burden that opened the door like this on the neighborhoods and the neighbors that would have to deal with it was too great to allow folks to have, extra freedom to work on their unregistered vehicles.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
The next public hearing is is to change an ordinance amending the code of the city of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to chapter 290 thereof entitled zoning by amending section 11.3 entitled special permits, specifically subsection 11.3.1 entitled special permit granting authority, and amending article 12 of the table of uses. We'll open up the hearing for those who wish to speak in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Members, members of the council. My name is Eric Slagle. I'm the Director of Development Services. I'm here to speak in favor of this zoning ordinance. This is an amendment that was proposed by the administration to the zoning ordinance in an effort to promote efficiency in the administration of our special permits. What it effectively does is it takes any special permit that is normally goes to the zoning board, and if there's also a site plan review required in front of the planning board, switches that special permit automatically to a planning board special permit. This does a couple of very important things. Number one, it allows developers and property owners to only have to apply for and go to one board instead of having to go to both the zoning board and the planning board for the same project. For the purposes of the public, it means they only have to attend one board meeting. So the members of the public who are taking their times out of their private lives to come and speak about projects don't have to go to both a zoning board meeting and a planning board meeting in this scenario. They only have to go to the planning board meeting. So for those reasons, it provides more efficiency for both developers and for the public to get their input in an appropriate fashion. Quite frankly, the site plan review process is the process that most of the public members are interested in, because it describes how the site layout, the landscaping, how the property is going to interface with the public space, to allow the planning board to also grant the special permit, which is just an allowance of use, but doesn't have anything to do with the aesthetics of the property. Just makes sense from our perspective, and we think that it's a good way to get everybody to have an easier time to get through what can sometimes be an onerous board process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor?
Deb Forgione, Pawtucketville Citizen Council. So this came from the same 14 pages, and it was, again, 2 meetings of the subcommittee, the zoning subcommittee. It was televised and attended. Same thing with the planning board and also with the citywide neighborhood council. So it was unanimous for many of the reasons that Eric mentioned. But I also wanted to mention that planning board, that's where the meat and potatoes are for a project for the special permit. Yeoman's work is done at that board. And so it only makes sense that that would be the board, that would be the final decision for the permit, especially for the reasons that Eric mentioned as far as the amount of meetings that you would have to go to. It does streamline it, so we fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on behalf of the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition, in opposition, in opposition. Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on behalf of the opponents, open up to the city council. To have a motion approved by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Mercia. Discussion on the motion. Roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
The next public hearing is for a loan order for the garage design bond for the Hamilton Canal Innovation District in the amount of $1,200,000. So it's a loan order to borrow an additional $1.2 million to pay costs of architectural and engineering services and for the payment of any other incidental and related costs thereto. We'll open up the hearing for the proponents. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Nicholas Navin, and I'm the parking director for the city. I speak in favor for this loan order for garage design. I'm sure we're all aware of how important this garage is for the Hamilton Canal Innovation District, and it's equally important that we commence with the design as soon as possible. With that said, I believe that this loan order is the most sensible and expeditious way for us to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor?
Armin Hebert, 499 Wilder Street. I'd like to speak in favor on this loan order. I think it's very important to the city. The city is growing. We need parking. That Hamilton Canal District is very important. It's going to bring a lot of revenue to the city in the future, and if we don't have parking down there, we will not have any companies coming in to look to build in there. And I just think it's a great thing to do. The city is moving forward, and I just hope there's no 11th hour things come up. We do own that land, right? Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? If not, we'll close the hearing now. We'll close the hearing on behalf of the proponents. Open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition, in opposition, in opposition. Hearing none, we'll close the hearing for those who wish to speak in opposition and open up to the city council. Mr. Manager, did you want to be heard on this?
Yes, I think it's important to note that this loan order will not be paid by taxes. It'll be paid by parking fees. So I think that's an important distinction to make. So I just want to let everybody know that.
Do we have a motion to approve by Council Belanger, second by Council Elliott? Discussion on the motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, how's the land swap deal, and what kind of commitment, if any, are we going to have to make to the national park to this garage? We could considerably hinder revenue, obviously. So what's the status there?
The land swap is going forward. We don't need the land swap to design the garage or to begin construction of it. Once the land swap takes place, we'll make the front of the garage much more aesthetically pleasing, but we can build the garage without the land swap right now. That's why we're going forward.
Okay, so we're hopeful in the end that we'll have no commitment to the national park for any allocation, if you will, of spots.
Right. We will have to give DCR some spots in the garage because they have some spots right now, but we'll be parking the buses at the MBTA site.
That sounds great. Please keep us posted on the land swap deal, Mr. Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott.
So, not to put the cart before the horse, but no,
Before you start, I misspoke. So it's, the proper motion would be, this has to be referred to the city clerk for 20 days. So that would be the motion if there's no objection, and second by Councilor Elliott. I'm sorry, Councilor Elliott.
so this is good news that we're moving forward on one garage, but anticipating, and we've already heard that even before we put a shovel in the ground, there's already a significant need for another garage. I mean, the parking receipts are going to pay for this. Are plans being made for that second garage, Mr. Manager?
Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, we're doing about to do a survey relative to the parking needs in the city, because not only do we need another one in the Hamilton Canal Innovation District, but we need one for downtown Lowell also. Businesses are expanding in downtown Lowell, and the only way they can expand is to have parking there. So we're doing a professional study relative to our parking needs, and more importantly, the best location for the new parking garages.
So it's not necessarily in the Hamilton Canal District per se, but it's just to alleviate congestion or need in other sections of the city. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Any further discussion? Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Are the planners thinking about adding any retail space to this garage, or it's strictly going to be for parking and bus storage?
It's just going to be parking and the storage, no retail space.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
The final public hearing of the evening is for National Grid request permission to install an underground line of electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures to service the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. We'll open up the hearing for the proponents. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor?
How you doing tonight? My name is Joanne Tilly from National Grid Electric. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor?
Good evening. The city engineer's office has reviewed the plans. This is going to benefit the Hamilton Canal. It's in preparation for that, so we approve of the project.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. We'll close the hearing on behalf of the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? 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 Hearing none. We'll close the hearing on behalf of the opponents and open it up to the city council. Do we have a motion to refer to the wire inspector for report and recommendation by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Rourke? Discussion on the motion. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, this wouldn't be, is this MassWorks related to the MassWorks grant we got at all? This utility to the district?
No, this will bring utilities to the foot of the bridge at Dutton Street. The MassWorks grant and us will then have to bring it back over into the Hamilton Canal District from that point forward.
Okay, all right. Well, it's progress. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Roll call. Oh, we don't need a roll call. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Returning to the agenda under ordinance from the city manager, we have an ordinance for traffic in 2017. And if there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 266 entitled Vehicles and Traffic. And the motion would be to refer to a public hearing for April 4th, 2017 at 7 p.m. by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Samaras. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next under subcommittee reports. We have the Neighborhood Subcommittee of March 13th, 2017. Councilor Leahy.
Stop talking, my Councilor Elliott. On, here we are. Neighborhood Subcommittee met March 13th at the Temple Bethel with the Highland Neighborhood Group. So you have to bear with me, I forgot my notes. So at the meeting, myself and Councilor Samaras, Chairman Rourke was unable to attend. He had prior commitment. Counselor Leary, Counselor Belanger was there, I believe, and I may have missed somebody else, and Counselor Mercia, yep, how could I forget that? We also had the Chief of Police, Chief of Fire in attendance, Mr. Damaris, Neighborhood Subcommittee, Neighborhood Services Director. So we started out the meeting, basically, we had our police report of the ComStat for the month. Nothing unusual. We spoke about some neighborhood concerns. The police chief, Chief Taylor, gave a crime report for the stats for the year and for the month. Overall, crime is down. That was good news for the whole year, for the city of Lowell in particular, for that neighborhood meeting. Fire Chief Winwood spoke about safety concerns, things that were happening with the fire department over the year, different safety issues that affect the neighborhood. We had a good discussion on that. Some of the concerns from the neighborhoods that actually came up were the double poles again. So up on Viola Street and a couple other streets in the neighborhood, Chelmsford Street. So particularly the people on Viola Street were concerned when those double poles would be finished off. Meeting went about an hour and 10 minutes. And if I forgot anything, I'll send it over to Council Samaras.
He did a great job, John.
Thank you.
But also, Chief Winwood and Superintendent Taylor did speak about the opioid issue and problems because of that, but all the good work that's being done in the community to deal with those issues. That many people asked questions regarding those issues and was well done. Also, Tom Belgard was also present at the meeting. And the community members did bring up some issues, and special issues with dealing with the selling of electricity in the neighborhoods. And I have a motion to deal with that, and I'll speak on that later on. But that was another concern that the neighbors did have. Thank you.
And then also, Representative Mom was there to answer some questions for the neighborhood group. So overall, it was a good meeting, and it's a report of progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the report? Or is we a motion by Council A, second by Council Samaras to accept the report as a report of progress? Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we have the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee of March 21st, 2017. Council Mercia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This evening, we held the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee meeting at 5:30 this evening. Those in attendance were my colleagues on the subcommittee, Councilor Leary and Councilor Rourke. We had Maria Claudio, president of the field, that hopefully will be named Roberto Clemente Field. We had Tom Belgard, assistant city manager / commissioner of DPW. We had David Willett, president of the action group, which is called Acre Coalition to Improve Our Neighborhoods. The topic of discussion was a motion presented on January 31st to the City Council, referred to the Parks Subcommittee, to discuss Roberto Clemente Little League field if there was any space available. So we sent out our trustee guy, Tom Belgard, and he identified a field that could accommodate the league, as he does all the good work, and we as a council take credit for it. At least I know I do, but I'm just thrilled that this was remarkable. I want to say that we held an informal meeting on this subject 2 weeks ago, and we asked that the Latino community, if they could reach out to their group, spread the word about this, see what the talk would be out there, if people would support it. So last Wednesday on March 15th, Dave Willett had a meeting with his neighborhood group at All Arts Gallery on Market Street. There were 28 people that attended, and they voted unanimously to support it. They accompanied a letter, which they presented to Tom Belgard this evening, outlining what they would request. So there's a little bit more to this than meets the eye, but it is, the goal anyway is to have the children off the street and into activities such as a Little League. So we 2 weeks ago had the informal meeting, and we had Keith Rudy, who was the president of AYO, Acre Youth Organization. He is disbanding that group, and he's giving all his equipment to this group, Clemente Field Group. And so everything was working out very well. And I want to just say that in the early days, Clemente Park was called Washington Park, and the name was changed due to the large number of Latinos that graced the area and lived in the neighborhood. Now, over time, a new generation came in, and other ethnic groups moved into the neighborhood, and now Roberto Clemente Park is utilized by the Southeast Asians. Keeping that in mind, it was a request to have Roberto Clemente Field over at Cumanzelas Park. This was like a swap. Let me just explain that Roberto Clemente on Middlesex Street will always, always be Roberto Clemente Park. Down the road in time, if the Southeast Asians want to come and name that field after someone of their importance, someone that's a hero, as well as Roberto Clemente was to the Latino people, that will be all right. But we're asking you, through a motion of this subcommittee, that we'll find field space for their Little League, which we have identified, as well as to name the field Roberto Clemente Field. It will be a field, but it'll never change Cumanzelas Park. Cumanzelas is a park. It's always going to be that name. It would not be fair to those involved to have their hopes up, even though it's utilized by someone else, to change that name. That is absolutely not proper. So we did discuss all this. So the motion is to refer to the full council this evening for a formal vote to appropriate and dedicate the formal vote for the field space to be known as Roberto Clemente Field at Cumanzelas Park. This is a motion by Councilor Rodney Elliott, who was in attendance as well. He brought this subject forward. We kind of perused it around, and I think everything's working out just fine. It'll be referred to the Board of Parks, but I'd like to have the support of my colleagues to make that happen. This, again, is another matter of fairness, and they'll be thrilled to have this field named after their hero, because they don't play on Middlesex Street. So if we could do that, that is a form of a motion.
You're making that as a motion, seconded by Councilor Elliott?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
To name that field Roberto Clemente Field.
Yes,
So, just from my understanding,
Sure.
I guess, what you're looking to do is take one ball field in Cumanzelas Park, name it after Roberto Clemente, that field.
Right.
Then in addition to that, the park that's currently at the corner of Branch and Middlesex will remain Roberto Clemente Park.
right. And then later on down the road, the Southeast Asians want to name that field. They can name the field whoever they wish. It's just a matter of fairness. Tom Belga, I wish I could tell you I thought of this idea. I did not. I wish I had. Tom Belga had thought of it, and it's, I think it's the best of everything. Everybody should be happy about this.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Elliott.
You should just see the excitement and the joy in this group's eyes when, we told them we were moving this forward. I mean, they have been scattered around the field, and it's very difficult to get, they're all volunteers, and they're trying to keep and grow this league for primarily the Hispanic community, and they're just ecstatic that they're going to have a place to call home, so to speak, to play the games. Right now, as I mentioned, they're scattered all around the city on what parks fields are available. So I think this is, and as they mentioned, this is just something good for the community. It's a place where they can meet and gather, and as well as give the kids something to do. So thank the chair for bringing this forward in a timely manner. They want to do it for opening day, and by all accounts, Mr. Bogart said he could make that happen.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Mercer.
Thank you. Just lastly, which Councilor Elliott alluded to it, their opening day is May 29th, which is the last Saturday in May. Hopefully, we can string a red ribbon across, cut that ribbon. You will never see happier people in your life. It's almost like we said, you just won the lottery. They're just so very proud, and so I hope we can make this happen. I know that it will probably go before the Board of Parks, probably, well, we're hoping the 29th, and I will represent whatever, over there to them.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so
No,
voted.
I'm asking for a roll call, please.
Roll call vote. Roll call.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you.
Next, under petitions, we have two property claims. The motion would be to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsel Leary. Discussion on the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under miscellaneous, we have a request for handicap parking sign at 6 Linden Street. Motion would be to refer to a traffic engineer for report and recommendation by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsel Leary. Discussion on the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next is a request for an open hanging sign at 108 Merrimack Street. The motion would be to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsel Leary. Discussion on the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. And next, under miscellaneous, is a request for permission to install an overhanging sign at 30 Central Street. Motion would be to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsel Leary. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under City Council motions. The first motion of the evening is a motion by Counsel Belanger. Request that the city manager address continued dumping along the First Street corridor. Seconded by Councilor Elliott, Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, this seems to be a never-ending saga here. It still persists. The neighborhood group meeting dictated that very clearly. Constituents from the motion I made probably a year ago, the same individuals are telling me it still persists, and even to perhaps a higher level. So we had left off with a fence or a wall that was going to be put up there, some kind of structure to obstruct this, and it has not. So where are we with that, and what can we do as we move forward? Is there any immediate plans for any kind of fencing or a barrier of some sort?
Well, we'll certainly look at, I mean, we've cleaned it up so many times, and then they just dump again, so.
Well, we're going to continue to clean it up unless we put
So
something permanent there. Yes, it's not going to stop. So, okay, well, what can we do? Can we find a permanent solution? Can you work on that, please? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further? Councilor Leary.
Just a quick question. When are we getting the cameras in? I mean, they're supposed to be mobile for the most part, right? Maybe that might be somewhat of a solution, maybe not, but it's just an idea to think through it. I know they kind of jumped at other parks throughout the city that have similar instances. We were at a meeting last night where they're talking about people sleeping overnight in the parks, various parks. So once the cameras come in and they're mobile, maybe that's something that can actually alleviate a lot, or at least we can catch a few of them and see what's going on, and maybe alleviate the ongoing persistent motions that we have, because the issues keep continuing to come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor Belanger. Request that the city manager work to address lighting and safety issues at the parking lot on Broadway Street adjacent to Yim's Variety. Second by Councilor Elliott, Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This parcel is, I guess, best for me to be described as adjacent to the Yim's Variety Store on Broadway Street. I understand DCR owns some of it as well, but what's happening here is with the construction of the Broadway Bridge, which is good news, Mr. Manager, the Tiger Grant, as a result, that's good news. It's being, Mr. Manager, is it being totally replaced or repaired on this one?
It's being replaced.
Being replaced entirely, because that's good news for the city and the university. That's the good news. But what has happened there with the stop of the flow of traffic, it's very dark in this area, and some constituents in the area have reached out to me and said that, some serious activity that is not very desirable is partaking there at a high level, and deferring kids and families there. So it's dark. So could you please, work with DCR, maybe some lights on, crime off, as they say, is an old adage, the neighborhood groups. But something needs to be done there. It's tough but you'd have to patrol it, you'd have to come down and do a circle. I mean, it's tough to be there all night. But as Councilor Leary said, which is a good idea, maybe, you know, the cameras, that'd be a good spot for one as well. He raises a good point. But something's got to get done there. It's a bad element that's sort of taking over, and we got to stop it before it gets really out of control. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Counselor Belanger. Request that the city manager work with the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs to discuss options to remove restrictions on the Colley site. Second by Counselor Leary. We have a registered speaker. Do you
Can
want
we,
the speaker- do you
can we
wanna go
just add
first?
my motion to 11.7? It's essentially the same motion, basically. Just add them together, if we could. Yeah, or bundle, bundle them.
Okay, if there's no
Not a-
objection, we'll include 11.7 with 11.3
11.13 too, Mr. Mayor? They're all the
and
same subject.
11.13. Anybody else? Is yours the same thing?
Anybody else?
11 point, which one, 11.5? Okay.
Okay, so,
All
Mr.
right.
Mayor, we'll let the speaker, if we have a registered, we'll let him go first.
Okay, we have one registered speaker.
Armin Hebert.
I'm in Hebert, 499 Wilder Street, and I'm thankful for that motion because I did sign up to speak for every one of those motions, so I can do it all in one. This is a very important motion made by Mr. Council Belanger here. People don't realize the jeopardy they put the whole high school project in if we cannot bring forward the Colley as an option. If the Colley is not brought forward as an option, which requires by the state for this grant program to get a new school as an option and an off-site. If you take Colley out of that, and I know it's beyond your hands right now, but if you take Colley out of those options, you do not have a grant. So that means no renovation, no new school, no nothing. And it's a sad day in this city if something like this, where the land can be replaced and everything else, that we're going to lose a high school for the future because of some people that just don't want things to happen. I mean, we really need to do it. All your motions, this council, that you put up tonight, I was in favor of, and that's what I was going to ask for a little leeway when I spoke on this one, if you didn't bundle them, that I support every one of your motions. This council has been very proactive on this city, on this high school project, and we've got to forge forward to get this done. The city manager came out at that Parks meeting and showed them. I think they misinterpreted your Manning Field, your Manning Ventura Field, as you were moving the kids. That ain't true. I know what you were doing there. You were showing that we were giving the city children more field space, not taking away, and I think that's a great thing to do. I think that was one of the things that was misunderstood in that meeting, that those weren't designated for the high school, that those were designated for the children of the city. Okay, I support this council and the city manager on this high school project. I hope we can get it through there. But if that Colley option comes off the table, that means you lose every bit of that grant. You get no grant from the city. So from the state, I'm sorry. So I don't think the city can pick up a $400,000 bill, a $400 million bill to renovate that high school. You got to keep that. You got to make sure that stays on those options. Thank you very much.
Okay, Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it was pretty much unanimous by the council to keep Colley on the table as an option. Simple, as an option as we go forward is by no means a slam dunk. There is a whole wealth of information that is forthcoming, and we will know more in 30 to 60 days. But we think we all agreed that it was important to keep this viable option on the table. It's as simple as that. So, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, Mr. Manager, could you please I think the council's all well aware briefly of that meeting, and I appreciate, I made as soon as you got the agenda for that Friday afternoon, before the last Tuesday's canceled meeting, you were on the phone, and the meeting was actually before last Tuesday's meeting, which was canceled, so I appreciate you very much. I think the council appreciates your efforts as to the matter. So could you please just briefly, sort of keep the folks at home, brief them as to how the meeting went, and the council as well.
Yes, the meeting went very well, and the Secretary of the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs advised us to continue forward with the Article 97 process and to work with them relative to replication of the fields, which we're doing right now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Simple as that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Council Leary.
There's one more individual that wants to speak. I don't know if we could take that out of order. Sure. Okay, go ahead. Yep. Motion to suspend the rules.
Thank you very much. My name is Olivia. I am in favor with Carly.
Your address, please.
132 Eddie Way, Lowell, Mass. 01852. So I've heard a lot of people talked about these topics, to renovate or to build a new Lowell High School. High school experience is one of the toughest experience for most students, myself included. It is the time for the student to enjoy their youth, have fun, build their characters, and discover who they really are. High school experience is once-in-a-lifetime experience. To renovate, it would take about 4 years or more. That would impact at least 500 students' entire high school experience. To build new, it would take about 3 years with no disruption to their high school experience. Will they remember what high school was like if they had to run around to find their next modular classes? Should they take time to discover who they really are? Or should they be cautious about their health and safety while they're walking near the renovation areas? To renovate or to build new high school, imagine this. It is spring. Would you rather smell fresh air, the flower blooming in the spring, hear the bird chirping? Or would you rather smell dusty air and hear the loud construction noise? I'm pretty sure none of us in this room want to smell dusty air and hear loud construction noise. If you have a choice between the two, which one would you choose? Most of you are probably a mother, a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, aunt, or uncle of somebody. We have high hopes and dreams for ourselves. Don't we want the same thing for the next future generation? For the future generation, should we invest what works best? Thank you.
We have one more speaker. Thank you.
Noel Cregan.
Good evening, city councilors, mayor, city manager. Noelle Cregan, 21 O'Hare Way, Lowell, Massachusetts. And I just wanted to speak briefly on the delay of the vote on Article 97. I had a couple things that I wanted to mention around the importance of keeping Colley as a viable option regardless of what's happening here with Article 97. I think there was a meeting last week or a week and a half ago where that was discussed. I also just wanted to mention the 600 or so emails that most of you or all of you should have received that are a clear indication of our support of your efforts to continue to keep Colley as a viable option. And I think that's an important voice to be heard. I know we don't have a room filled with that, but hopefully you checked your emails throughout the weekend and saw that that was a constant theme. Keeping Colley as a viable option allows for the next phase of studies to be continued, and we need to keep both locations, both downtown and the Colley site, open and moving forward. We really don't know the implications right now or the full implications at either location until those studies are completed. And I think following Article 97 all the way through to make sure that we have both locations as an option is critical in this point, in this matter. So in closing, I think my biggest concern is fairness and transparency within the process, and we want to keep that open. And that's been, again, a common thread that we've had as a group and individually myself as well. And then I just have one question, if I can, and I don't really know the right person to pose it to, but just as this delay has come up, I just don't understand, what are the possible implications of delaying this vote?
The delay just means that the matter will come up next Tuesday at the regular city council meeting, that's all.
Would that delay then potentially impact the state's ability to turn this decision around, or their time frame to appropriately address it?
I don't expect that it will.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Any
night.
further discussion on the motions before us? Go ahead.
Hi, Jay Hungate from 11 Westview Road. I think it's great that the city council is working to go forward with all the different projects. I would like to show equal pressure put on all projects. There's a great deal of pressure being put on getting the Collie site, getting the Article 97 removed. I would like to see the same amount of energy put on the eminent domain for 75 Arcan Drive, because that also represents new construction. That it's not just Collie that is new construction. Additionally, I would think there should be studies regarding, and I think it's in the motions here, regarding the busing, sidewalks, all that for Collie. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motions? So the motion is to approve 11.3, 11.5, 11.7, and 11.13. Councilor.
I won't talk a lot tonight about it, but I think it's obvious you want to get all options. And it's imperative that happens so you can have a good competition between them. You're spending a lot of money on this. The taxpayer, not only here, but for the entire state of Massachusetts is paying a lot of money. So it's imperative that we have a fair competition. That's what it really is. This is the whole process of lining up sites and having them compete and not being afraid what that outcome is. So I think it's imperative that we keep Collie. I agree with the speaker about keeping option 3. I agree with option 2. Even option 1 should be up and have a full competition to see what exactly is the best location for the students and for the city that's going to last long before all our lifetimes. So I won't speak a lot on it tonight, but I think that's something, if we keep all 4 options going forward, I know there's a lot of angst going regarding all these options, but I think once we lay out all the objective evidence and we have the time to lay out the objective evidence, the answer will really become more obvious. We may not like the obvious, but it will become more obvious. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Milonazo, then Council Milonazo.
Thank you. Again, I'm looking forward to keeping all 4 options on the table. I'd be more than happy to tell you the reason I moved for a delay was because we as a council wanted to make sure that this process was open and transparent. And we scheduled a meeting for tomorrow night with the Hispanic community over at the Senior Center, CMMA on Thursday night with the Khmer community. And I just felt that let's get those 2 meetings done this week and then vote on this, again, to move forward with the Article 97. I just thought it was important to make sure that we as a council could meet with the neighborhood groups tomorrow and Thursday evening. Again, I support the motions in front of us for the most part. And what I mean by that is, again, talking to the secretary about Article 97 is very key. I'm thrilled to hear the meeting went well. But at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that if we are not in compliance with Article 97 for the Collie site, it doesn't impact other parks, other grants that we receive, be it South Common or other areas of the city. So I just, again, want to make sure, and I know the administration knows that, but I just think it's important to repeat that if we're out of compliance with Article 97. The fact that, and again, I don't know if we're talking other motions right now, or all the motions that have been bundled.
I guess these 4 motions anyways have been bundled together, so that gives you a lot of leeway.
Regarding Councilor Rourke's motion to repay the grant, I, again, understand the reason behind that. I understand, and again, I don't want to speak for Councilor Rourke, but it may have been done in another community, which is fine. But to support the motion just to say repay the grant, I think as a fiscal responsible council, we want to know how much that is. I mean, if it was a $1.4 million grant, say 15 years ago, you know, we're paying back in 2017 dollars, we're going to be paying back $5 million. I don't know that. So again, I don't know if Councilor Rourke would be open to amending the motion just to request the city manager to find out how much it would cost us to repay the grant, and then if we want to come back, I mean, this just says repay the grant. We just don't know what it is. So again, I'd be happy to support the intent of the motion because I think it's an honorable motion from the standpoint of, again, keeping all options in play. The other motion regarding Councilor Leary's, again, yes, Councilor Leary, again, all options are on the table. This city council on more than one occasion has unanimously put forward all 4 options. So again, as we sit here tonight, all 4 options are still on the table, and the administration now is endeavoring to make sure that the issue with Colley Stadium is addressed so that can continue to be a viable option as we get closer to a vote. So again, those are my comments on the bundled motions, and again, I will defer to Councilor Rourke relative to how we're going to find out how much that is relative to not voting tonight to repay it. We just want to know how much it's going to be, and if in fact that would remove the restrictions of Article 97.
Just as a point of information, I don't have, I guess nobody has the Article 97 agreement that pertains to the fields in back of the stadium, but I do have an Article 97 agreement for other parts of the Colley property, and there's a provision in there that says that both parties agree that repayment of the grant money will not constitute a remedy. So I would expect Council Rourke's motion, while I think it is thoughtful and creative, I think when it's referred to the city manager is going to have to come back and say that's not a viable option, no matter whether it's 3 million or 18 million. Councilor Elliott, and then Councilor Mercia.
Yeah, sure. My motion is just to ensure, and this motion was a result of Mr. Conant, Steve Conant, raising an issue relative to Article 97, the downtown site, as well as whether Article 97, he seemed to indicate, applies to the tunnels that cross over the canal, and whether air rights would still need to be mediated. So just want to ensure as we move forward that those restrictions, if there are any restrictions on the existing Lowell High School site, that we look into that and make sure that there are none. Have you done that, Mr. Manager? Has anybody looked into any of those restrictions, or is that something you're looking into?
Yeah, we're looking into that right now. It requires title examinations of all the lots, and we're looking for any restrictions that may be there.
But at this point, you haven't identified any? Okay.
Not at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the city manager. So I was going to talk about amending Councilor Rourke's motion only because I thought that it wasn't really 1.4. I thought it was much less. So I would have suggested that we would have tried to find out what it is and see if we could pay that amount. Now I'm understanding it's not an option and you can't. Did you ask that when you went to Boston to meet with them, if we could have paid it back?
Yes.
And what did they say?
No, it's not.
They said no.
It's not a viable option.
How much land are we supposed to replicate?
22.5 acres. 22.3 to 22.35 acres.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be in the same area. Could be around the city. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Milonasso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is really not a smart thing to do when I have a lot of respect for Armin Hebert, but I do want to have the city manager weigh in on his comment that if we rule out Colley, all the money goes away, and it's my understanding that's not true. So again, Armin, I don't want to get beat up for the rest of 2017 by you, but at the end of the day, if there is not an off-site option, we can still move forward with the other options. That's my understanding. Again, I'm hoping to keep all 4 options until we get to the critical decision, but he indicated that we might be throwing away $400 million, and that's just not the case. Thank you.
Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, do you actually have the Article 97 restrictions with those 2 parcels that are in question?
The Article 97,
What-
you mean the grant?
Yes.
We do have one grant, paperwork relative to one grant, that some of that money was used to build the girls' field hockey land. That's the only paperwork we have relative to any of those parcels.
So maybe it's a dumb question. So why are we considering 2 fields then? I mean, wouldn't you need to have all the information before even going to the EOC? I mean, I think people have asked, and of me, of course, I'm sure it's the council, where's the actual paperwork that says what is, restricted or not?
Well, they are construing that to encumber the entire land and the parking lot out front, because we put in synthetic turf in the stadium, and they're saying that the parking lot encumbers that also. So that's the opinion of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs.
But there's no paperwork on it?
Just the paperwork. The only paperwork we can find of money actually being expended is relative, and it isn't even a grant, it's a plan of land showing that the girls' field hockey field was constructed with that money.
So without the actual paperwork or whatnot, I can see why people are so up in arms about, why we're even doing this if we can't provide any actual information concerning the sites.
It's the opinion of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs that it's encumbered by Article 97, and so that's the only way we're going to be able to move this forward.
But even with no official documentation on that?
Again, there is one grant application, and there's a plan of land showing that some money from there was used on this parcel. So there is some paperwork, albeit small amount of paperwork, but there is some paperwork.
Okay, could we get that paperwork maybe in next week's packet, just so we have it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion on the motions? Councilor Elliott.
I just follow up on Councilor Rourke's questions. So, Mr. Manager, the city doesn't have any paperwork on any Article 7 restrictions. We have one document that reflects that we received some money. Okay. But there are multiple parcels, correct? So the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, they don't have any paperwork, according to the meeting that I attended with you and others in the room. So if nobody has any paperwork, how can we, either side, be proving that it's a parkland restriction or not? But there's no deed record, right? It wasn't recorded in the deed either, right?
No, I'm saying there is some paperwork, very small, and I think Elliot Veluso would be able to explain this better. Can you explain how?
It just seems to me, somebody's claiming there's a restriction. Nobody has any paperwork, and maybe it's up in the cloud somewhere that, this notion that there's been, that there are these restrictions that have been placed, but there's no record of it. I'm confused. I can imagine the general public are confused, and people involved in this process are confused, considering if there's no record. How are we making these determinations?
Councilor Elliott, through the city manager, research that has been conducted has shown documentation, both in terms of grant applications that the city submitted in which funding was received by the state to perform work at the Kelly Stadium, as well as documentation showing the conducting of work on certain portions of Kelly Stadium. Specifically, I believe this is designated Plan 3 of grant submission number 2. There is documentation that we found that shows work plans. And on those work plans, it indicates those areas of the Colley complex where funds through that grant were expended. Specifically, the plans indicate work that was done at the stadium itself, specifically the installation of a racing track, as well as other, I believe, a high bar area, and other work at the stadium. What the plans also indicate, however, is that work was performed in creating, as the city manager indicated, the field hockey field, which is located, I believe, to the east of the Colley Stadium. Additionally, the grant application documentation that the law department was able to find indicates that for purposes of the grant submission, that area of Colley Stadium, which was designated as the area to receive the grant funding, includes the Colley Stadium, includes the parking lot to the left of it, and includes those field areas to the right of it, which also encompasses the field hockey area that received funding. Based on this documentation, there is a strong indication that, one, the city submitted an application to receive this funding, two, that the city received funding, and that three, through this funding, work was performed at the Colley Stadium as well as the field as indicated. Based on this documentation, through that, Article 97 restrictions therefore apply.
Okay. So the city identified all of this documentation. The state did not. Correct?
I can't speak for the state's search efforts. All I can indicate is that this documentation was uncovered in the city's search.
Okay. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager, at that meeting, was there any declaration that the state found any of this information? I mean,
No.
Mr. McGovern was there? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's helpful in clarifying how we got to this place, considering there's little documentation to validate that, but
Thank you, Council. Council Rourke?
I think, Mr. Mayor, just one more quick question. So I spoke with Ms. Cryan, who actually sent the original, letter, email, or whatnot. So she said she had nothing on it, just that she was told that the restrictions were in place. And then we had that solicitor speak about the parking lot. Don't you have to have work done for the Article 97 restrictions being put in place? Like, what work was done to the parking lot that would restrict that from use?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the Colley Stadium site itself, right, we knew was Article 97 because it had received the money for the synthetic field. The way the parcel is broken up is, if you think of this, if you can visually, if you're looking at the Colley Stadium and the Janus Rink would be to the north, the parking lot, about half of that parcel goes into the parking lot. So therefore, you would grab that into Article 97. And then also, the other remaining section of that parking lot, EEA considers that Article 97, even though it's a parking lot, because their determination is that for most of their parks here in the state, also included is parking. And so therefore, that jumps into the Article 97 category as well.
You would, no work done, no funding was used, no work was done?
Correct.
Okay, so the EEA's objective, the reason why they exist, is to help cities and towns lift the restrictions. Is that correct?
Well, to help us lift those restrictions, correct. And that's what they're doing with us right now.
So, but they're putting restrictions in place that they can't find.
Well, they're looking, I mean, I can't speak for the EEA. I can only say that this is the determination that made, and we've also agreed that we have to follow the Article 97 process, so that we're trying to, that's what we're going to do.
I think this is where the transparency, stuff comes in, because there's no hard proof of anything other than what people are told. And again, we spoke of multiple different sites, but the city has paperwork on one little possible field hockey field. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Council Leary.
Just to follow up on the parking lot. So what they're saying to us then essentially is that we have to replicate a parking lot? Even though, we have a parking lot that they're saying is part of the parcel, they're saying we have to replicate a parking lot somewhere. That's what they're saying, because it is a parking lot.
Yeah, but what they're saying is that since we're gonna, if we finish with the Article 97, if we choose Colley as a site, we're gonna be changing the function of the parking lot. So therefore, we have to remove it from Article 97 to change the function of it.
And that means we'd have to find another parking lot with the
No,
same.
we don't have to, we just have to replicate that amount of land
As a park.
as open space.
Okay, so even though we're using it as a parking lot, and it's not used for a park, we will be required to find open space as a park somewhere throughout the city. That's what we're saying here. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I guess that's the end of the day. It's a parking lot. It's never been a park, far as I know. Parks a lot of cars for functioning. We're going to be we're actually going to be creating more park space, which is not a bad thing. I think it's actually an interesting thing. But the irony of it is we will actually, if we go through this process, create more park space than we had before. Right? That's a yep. Yes or no? I mean, really, that's what we're doing, right? Interesting. That's just fascinating. So my last question really is, the 22.35 acres, we're looking for the process, we'll be able to replicate that throughout the city, correct?
We've already started the process of identifying parcels, and we're confident that we're going to be able to meet that acreage with the parcels.
So if the college site's actually chosen, we will have more park space than we had before we began?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Leahy.
Thank you. Just through you, the manager. They didn't take any consideration in that? I thought some of the money was used just for bleachers and not really land.
No, they didn't take that into consideration.
All right. And technically where that last parcel of land, the girls' field hockey and lacrosse, technically where that's in Drake-it and we use their property, we have to replace that also? I mean, it's technically not in Lowell, so why couldn't we get off on a technicality of excluding that acreage?
Because even though it's in Tewksbury, we own the land.
Well, we don't technically own it. We have an agreement to use it, don't we?
No, we own it.
We own it.
We do own it now? I thought technically it was still, was that when we did the Friends of Lowell High agreement maybe a few years ago?
Yeah, we own it. They deeded the property to us.
They deeded over? Okay. All right, thank you.
Council Milonazo.
Just one final point. Again, this council and the city will have to replicate that 22.5 acres, and it's going to have to be replicated as open space. So we're going to need not only the plan, but we're also going to need the cost. And it's my understanding that that cost is not reimbursable under MSBA. So at the end of the day, again, I hope option 4 stays in this for, until we decide we're going to make a decision, pick the preferred site. But let me remind my colleagues, Colley Stadium is only at a 55% reimbursement from the MSBA. We're going to have to pay for parks. We're going to have to pay, when we get to Councilor Kennedy's motions later this evening, there's going to be other costs that we're going to have to incur. So again, the idea of having the campus is really significant for a lot of people in this community, but at the end of the day, it's going to be up to this council to say, yes, we can afford it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Leary, then Council Belanger.
Just, I would have to I wasn't going to speak this much on it, so I apologize. I agree, we're going to have to pay to afford it. No one's bid on the project yet. Right now, we have basically just a quick study of what the cost would be. We have no idea about the renovation cost. So at the end of the day, to say this and that and the other, we really do not know, because we haven't really gone through the analysis. The idea is to take all 4 options and have them compete. And at the end of the day, when you're sitting here on May 9th, hopefully May 9th, you'll know what these costs are, a little bit better what those costs are. But you really aren't going to know those final costs until someone actually bids on it. So I don't want to, I respect all my counselors and their opinions. I know there's strong passion either way, but none of us really know what's the best option at the end of the day, because we haven't had them stand up and compete and going through the analysis. A lot of motions here are going to be the regular price of what Skanska will be doing for us that we hired them to do, and what the city will work with them on. And I think that's positive, and I think we should do it. I think we need to let these 4 options stand up together, and at the end of the day, those costs will become more known. Really, we don't know what the costs are at this point. We know what concepts are based on Google Maps and what square footage would be, but we don't know all the answers yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, for clarification, okay? We're talking about multiple parcels that need to be replicated throughout the city. Now, what I'm hearing from constituents is, why are we have to replace all that acreage when, one, there's going to be fields made along with the high school, number 1. So why should 5 fields be replaced when we're putting 2 there? And why isn't the number 3, hypothetically? Number 2, some of these fields are gated. They're gated and locked. You can't even, they're not open to the public. They're like, why are we going to replace open fields? And so people are sending me pictures of a fence, chain link fence, and that's supposed to be open space, and it essentially is not. I mean, I'm just making the case for constituents. Okay, that's what they bring to me, so that's what I bring to this floor. So that's what I'm hearing, Mr. Manager. And so, first question, why is 5 fields in total? Why do we need to replace all 5 when we're building 2 along with the high school, number 1? And again, they're not essentially open space because they're gated. So, for clarification, Mr. Manager.
It's the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs position that we must replicate all of the land as open space, which is the 22.35 acres. And we are currently looking at parcels and doing title searches on them to make sure there's no restrictions relative to the 22.35 acres. As far as replacing the 5 fields, yes, but those 2 fields that we're proposing to replicate at the Colley site would qualify for 2 out of the 5 fields.
I do, okay. All right, and as to the gated issue, now, is that still considered open? This is the question now is that the fields that are gated and locked and padlocked, is that still considered, I guess, open space when it's essentially it's not open to the public? So that's for clarification, please.
Yes, it is regarded open space, even though it's gated.
It is, okay. Wow, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak either, but we can talk about what is reimbursable and the taxpayer, and then we can look at another point and say, we don't know what the change orders would be once you start renovating an old building. What are the cost overruns? We don't know that either. We don't even know what would be paying to eminent domain, which I'm hearing is in the vicinity of $2 million. So there's a lot of costs associated with that that's unknown yet. So there's a lot on our plate tonight as well. But there's another phase and many more phases with Sanska. So we're asking for questions that we don't even know yet and that they're going to provide us. I will not support anything that deals with taking city funds and doing a study when we paid $2 million for Sanska to do the work and will bring us a next phase in this issue. So I don't know. It's kind of too premature, I think.
Any further discussion? Council Rowe.
Just lastly, Mr. Mayor, thank you, with you, Manager. So next week in our packet, we could have the grant that was spoken of and the small piece of land that's costing us 22.35 acres. That piece of land, how much acreage is that?
I believe that's, I want to say somewhere around 3.5 acres.
That's all the city has, it's just 3.5 acres on record of what was used with
I'm
with state
sorry, do you mean how much money was used and how much in
Yeah,
that
I mean,
field
the
lot?
manager stated earlier that the only thing that the city has on record is just a small piece of land concerning part of the field hockey field.
It was that, yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it was the actual field hockey field that was developed.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so
That
just,
cut-
one total package of everything, the grant and any correspondence between the EAC and, and then the actual, what you have on record, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief because I know we've talked about this ad infinitum. But I guess my question to you is this, Mr. Manager. So we've delayed Article 97, a home rule petition, we've delayed it for the week, and I understand the point behind it, but I guess my concern is as we met with EOEA and we met with the delegation, the sooner we got the bill in, the sooner they could work on the language and get the process moving. I guess my concern is in 49 days, the city council is going to be required to take a vote on the preferred option, correct? Am I correct up to this point? And in light of the fact that, and maybe the legislation will be passed, maybe it will be signed by the governor in 49 days. I'm a little nervous about that, quite frankly. And maybe I should be optimistic. Maybe things can be passed in that time frame. But if they're not, then how in all good conscience is the school business authority going to look at whatever option, and including option 4, should it be the preferred option? How can we in good conscience say send this down when we know from the get-go, SCANSA has told us that we're ruling out certain sites because there are some indefinites or there are some unknowns? Wouldn't this be one of the unknowns if it's not signed and sealed before we make that vote? I mean, that's my concern in delaying it, that we're tying the hands of the legislature a little bit more because, and I understand the point, I really do, but I'm also concerned that we're making the noose is getting a little bit tighter on option 4.
Yeah, but I don't think a week delay is going to jeopardize the proposal, because the most work we have to do is the field replication.
Right.
And that's going to take the most time, so.
And where are we with that?
We have already identified probably about six sites that exceed 22.35 acres. We have to do title examinations on them just to make sure there aren't any restrictions relative to them. So we've already identified these parcels, and now we're doing title examinations to verify there's no restrictions relative to them.
Okay, I don't think a week is the end either. I'm just concerned with the ultimate outcome, that we're gonna take a vote on the 9th on an option, and if option 4, if that legislation is not filed, we're jeopardizing the project to a large degree, in my opinion, because we're sending down an option to the School Business Authority that is not going to be complete. And we have been told from the beginning, send out an option that is essentially ironclad. That's my understanding. Would you agree?
Well, I don't know about the term ironclad, but I'm saying they obviously want a preferred option that can go forward.
Right. I mean, maybe I use the wrong terminology, Mr. Manager. My point is that there are not any unknowns, no uncertainties, because they don't want anything. They do not want that. So that's just my concern with the overall approach, and I just want to make it clear that to keep it competitive, we also need to be, we need to move on this, and this really needs to be done before May 8th.
And as I said before, if May 9th comes upon us and we're not comfortable with moving forward at that time, we can delay the vote. That's a possibility
Okay,
also.
we can.
Yes.
That's not going to interrupt
No.
the timelines that you send out that SBA would like us to
Well,
meet.
it would delay, instead of having the final vote by the SBA on June 28th, it'd be more of an August date.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That is good to know, or refresh our memories, because it's, that's more comforting. So, thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mayor.
Any further discussion? Councilor Samaras.
No, that was my question. The city manager just addressed that. You've spoken to that before, that if we're not completely ready, that we could wait till August and make that presentation. So it gives us a little leeway, in a sense, to do it right. Based on that, do you think we can do it within that time if we needed that extra time? Would that be adequate?
If everything goes according to plan, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the four motions? All opposed? So voted. The next motion of the evening, the next motion of the evening is by Councilor Belanger. Request that the city manager work with Youth Services to roll out a summer jobs program for 2017. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking to replicate last year's performance, Mr. Manager, where we had over 1,200 some jobs for our youth in the city. So just looking for a timely report so we can roll it out sometime in April and begin the process to putting youth to work this summer. I'm very excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor Leahy. Request that the city manager investigate the possibility of the use of iPads by department heads in order to operate more efficiently. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you, the manager, just if we can investigate this, it may not be just the departments, it might be their, who is ever in charge under them, but let's just take a look to see if this helps them out in the field. Instead of going back and forth for paperwork, they can communicate with these iPads, get the work list whittled down, and just be more effective during the day for everybody. So it's just an idea to take a look at. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor. Request that the city manager work with Lowell Public Schools superintendent in order to determine the potential busing costs for all Lowell High students. Report to include the busing costs if student redistricting is implemented. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Leary.
Just quickly, There's a motion, I actually, before I left the school committee, had a motion that was pending regarding this actual issue, not related to Cawley, but it does fit beautifully into the Cawley situation, because obviously if we move out of downtown, we're going to need to find busing. I know that the school committee's working on this, because of the snow delay, they're having their subcommittee, I think their transportation next Tuesday. So a lot of the cost, obviously it costs more money for buses when you add more buses, pretty easy math, the number of buses times whatever the cost is. But it does, if you look at it from a redistricting, if that's something that's totally in the school committee's preview, it dramatically reduces the cost. Though there are challenges when you do that in terms of the way the city's structured. But if we could work with them to do that, I know they're going to have a meeting on Tuesday. Obviously, we have a city council meeting. If we could send someone there to get some of that information from the subcommittee. I know, Mayor, when it does become from the school committee, when you have it, I'll be in attendance on it, because it was an existing motion that I had before I left. And I think committee member Gignac actually can't even talk right now, actually has a motion regarding that as well. But I think the costs are dramatically, I think you actually have a savings when it's all implemented, but there are issues you have to address, and a lot of that does require time. Thank you.
Thank you. $3.5 million just for buses for the
If you had savings, you'd probably save about $500,000, including it, I think.
Yep.
So it's a massive savings. Even if we don't go to Cawley, you should do it, because it actually makes sense. The question is how you do it. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
This is a good motion, and I do recall the motion by Councilor Larry. We could have co-sponsored it. I believe I filed something similar, knowing that how many kids are crisscrossing the city, and we, in large part, all of our schools are diversified, and we should try to go back to neighborhood schools and still not violate a desegregation order. And I believe a plan is, and it's taken some time, but the plan is forthcoming, that there is some savings, and if we don't do anything, then there's a dramatic increase. So I look forward to this report, and be nice to know when that subcommittee meeting is, because not only is it going to save money, but it could also potentially address and save money, or at certainly no cost, should one of the options at Cawley be selected. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. I'd like to ask the maker of the motion if we could also include, though, the starting times. Whatever changes are made, there's going to be different type of changes, level changes. I think to offer to our constituents, the type of bus schedule that we use, but what time will the schools start? What time will the schools end? These are things that are very important to parents.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think the problem, is it's not only the time, but the times actually gets better. The problem is really that people have made decisions based on location and how it fits their lifestyle. So obviously it's in the school committee preview, but the way I was looking at it when I was on the school committee, you got to grandfather it in. And it would take 3 to 5 years to make it happen.
No,
I agree.
I understand what you're talking about, but the thing is, you're right. Parents do.
Yeah.
They run their work life around literally their children's school schedule, and so it's very important that type of information is made available to them.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So I thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Councilor Larry. Request the city manager have the DPW repair the multiple potholes on Park Avenue West at the end of Perry Street. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Larry.
First of all, thank you. I guess Mike Damaris has already been out there, so thank you very much. It's just a constituent call, but it's obviously Mike saw it, so it's a challenging area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor Leary. Request the city manager review the impact of the president's proposed budget cuts to the community development grants that would have on the city should they be implemented. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Leary.
It does speak for itself. It's something we're preparing for the budget. This is something that could hurt the city, and there's probably a lot of other budget cuts that could have serious impact in not only the city but the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Councilor Milanazzo. Request that the city manager have the traffic engineer determine the appropriate speed limit for East Merrimack Street between Rivercliff Road and Nesmith Street. Seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Milanazzo.
Thank you. Just briefly, there's actually a 30-mile-per-hour sign at the end of East Merrimack Street by Rivercliff, and 30 miles an hour just seems fast for that, neighborhood street. So if you could just have the traffic engineer look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Councilor Samaras and Councilor Belanger. request that the city manager of the DPD create a questionnaire for downtown businesses to identify the reactions to location for Lowell High School. We have a registered speaker for this, Councilor Samaras.
Did we miss a motion?
Which one?
Council Milonazo's motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, motion by Councilor Milonazo.
Right, but,
Request-
yeah, if you want to read it, that's
You're-
fine.
You're,
Mayor.
you're gonna,
Withdraw it.
Withdraw that
Yeah.
motion, okay. So, by Councilor Samaras on the other motion.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. I'm sure when we choose the site for Lowell High School, every member of this council, will make sure that we make the best choice for our students. But, in doing all of this, we want to ensure that we have input from all groups. And one of the groups are the downtown business people. And I'd like to see a questionnaire developed that will give them a chance to offer their opinion as to whether they feel the high school is important to have in the downtown or should be moved. There's many stories about the high school, it doesn't really add to the downtown, the business people. There are other stories that if you take the high school out of the downtown, it'll greatly impact the business people. But what better way to understand this than simply to ask them? I think it's appropriate at this time to, it shouldn't dictate where the school goes, but the thing is, it should give us an idea as to what different members and different groups of our city think is important about this high school. Because people have to realize this high school is very important. Not only is this a major project, but the high school's been in the downtown for, literally 100 years and over 100 years. And it's had an impact. So any changes, I think we should, give our business people an opportunity to reflect on that. And I don't think it has to be, Mr. Manager, a very long questionnaire, but basically a simple questionnaire, almost a yes or no. And if yes, why? If no, why? What are your feelings about this? Councilor Belanger and myself already have done some part of our tour work, and we went to a number of businesses in very different opinions, and they all had something to say about it. But I think when we asked them, would they like to see a questionnaire, most spoke to that, saying that they would favor something like that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next motion is by Councilor Samaras. Request the city manager have the proper department provide information for our residents on who is allowed to sell electricity door to door. Second by Councilor Leary, Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Regarding this motion, I've heard from a number of people in the Centerville area, and when we went to the Highland neighborhood meeting, there was a number of comments made regarding people coming to their door to sell electricity or representing companies selling electricity. And what they've said to the people, some of the people that have spoken to me, is that the city is losing its contract, or the city will not have its contract for low-priced electricity, and you better sign up now, or you're going to lose your chance to get a fair price for your electricity. In other words, I think there are groups of people that are going, and I found a lot of the people I've spoken to were retired people, more retired people. It's almost like they're handpicking them. They're looking at, the telephone books that the city has of, what people do, and they're going to them and trying to frighten them. And I do know that if you do go out into the city, you should have a permit from the city. But a lot of people did not ask. I asked people, did you ask if they had a permit? No. Some did. They didn't have a permit. But they're intimidated by these people. So I don't have an answer, but is there a way, Mr. Manager, that we can get information out to our constituents to talk about, okay, first of all, the question is, where are we as a city with our low-powered, low-priced electricity? How long is that contract going to last? And what are people's options? Because they want to know, but they're being intimidated, and that bothers me.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so
Yes.
voted?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you allow the manager just to give you were going
Yep, Mr.
to
Manager.
perhaps say something?
No, the contract is in full force and effect, and it's the lowest pricing that a consumer can get in the city of Lowell, and a business also, if a business wants to participate. But you also, with these people that are going around, we ran into it with the gas company over on Draper Street also, they don't even have to register or anything. So I think it's time we started looking at maybe some type of ordinance where they have to register with the police department or something like that before they go.
They don't have to
canvassing.
have a permit though right now?
No, not,
I
my
was made
understanding
aware
is they
that they-
don't. Some may, but some don't. Just like the gas company coming to your door to say, I'm here to change your meter, they don't need anything. So I think we need to look into that. We'll give you a report on the standing of the current energy contract and how we can better monitor these people selling in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I don't know how we can also address it, but I received something in the mail about, okay, going green, and that's nice, but they'll say, you have to pay more, but it's better to go to this company. I have no idea what who the company is. It's in Washington DC, but to sign off and let them buy my electricity, and they say, well, we're going to do good things. We're going to charge you more, but we're going to do better things for you. I mean, these aren't things that we send into the home. We have to make sure that especially our senior citizens, our constituents, anybody, family people, have the best information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor Samaras. Request the city manager update the city council relative to the disposition of the Susie parcel of land. Seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. I heard that there's quite an interest in the Susie parcel, and that's good to hear, Mr. Manager, that more people are interested in these buildings and this land. But many of us came before you when we had toured a company called Unwrapped, and they have several hundred Cambodian family members that work in that factory. And we were supportive, or I was supportive of them obtaining some of the land or some of the building in the Susie parcel. But in a recent article in the Lowell Sun clearly outlined that they were fined by the federal government for improper wage payments, not paying proper overtime, possibly trying to fire people who complained about the issue. This is not what I call the American dream. We're talking about the poorest area in the city. We're talking about the area in the city where we have the Federal Reserve grant to do several things. One, to educate the population that's there, to try to create better jobs for them there, and better housing. And we have a company that, well, it seemed to have been doing some good work, but the thing, if it's going to play upon the lives of these people, we need to protect them. We need to ensure. I don't know what the power of the city is at this particular time, but I do know the CBA is a part owner in this company. And perhaps you, Mr. Manager, can work with the CBA to ensure that this doesn't happen again. As I said, we go to many flag raisings, and all the people there talk about this being the American dream, and they do say that the American dream is a reality. Yet you have something like this. This is unacceptable. So, Mr. Manager, whatever you can do with this, and also maintain the Susie land. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
Yeah, I think this is a good motion by Councilor Samaras. I visited the site a couple of times, once as the mayor, and it's really unfortunate what we have learned on the treatment of the employees over there, and the fact that he wanted to expand when he wasn't paying his employees, certainly not prevailing wage, but not even a decent wage amongst other conditions. So I'm not sure what the status of that is, Mr. Manager. I know they were looking to expand, and the CBA, they're the real estate partner in this. They own the building. But I think before we do anything, certainly some restitution has been made, but we need to, we need to be careful. Those, mostly women in that, and Councilor Samaras is right, about 300 Cambodian women and a few men. They work hard, and to learn, and they didn't say anything. Luckily some of them complained, because what I have learned, like we all have since, the other violations, just pretty sad in this day and age. And so I support the motion that we identify or find out first, what's going on before moving forward. I don't know if they're in negotiations with Mass Development. I believe they were in discussions with them, but proceeding cautiously makes sense. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed? So voted. The last 5 motions are my motions, which I don't mind if they're bundled together, but I would like to speak on them collectively if
Move
there's
to
no
bundle them,
objection.
Mr. Mayor.
Next, 5 motions from Mayor Kennedy, they've been bundled. Motion 11.17, request city manager have traffic engineer conduct a traffic study that will consider the impact on the projected increase in traffic in the Belvedere neighborhood and on Route 133 and Route 38 if the high school were to be relocated out of the downtown. Motion 11.18 by Mayor Kennedy, request city manager to report to the city council regarding anticipated costs due to the infrastructure and traffic improvements necessary if the high school were to move out of downtown, including any sidewalks, road improvements, traffic lights that were needed. Motion 11.19 by Mayor Kennedy, request city manager report to city council regarding any standing that the town of Tewksbury would have regarding Article 97 and on any conservation or environmental issues. Motion 11.20, Mayor Kennedy, request city manager to report to city council regarding votes necessary by the Conservation Commission regarding the wetlands adjacent to the College site and the natural heritage endangered species in the area that's adjacent to the College site. And finally, 11.21 by Mayor Kennedy, request city manager report on parking solutions regarding the College site. Second, Councilor Samaras, Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These 5 motions basically are requests for information that I would like to have before the May 9th vote. In some instances, they request information that will, regarding what the ancillary costs will be, such as any sidewalks and so forth that would have to be put in. And in some instances, they would be issues that could come up that could delay the project, such as the environmental issues and the Conservation Commission issues. And also the parking, which is puzzling to me because when the Colley site was originally put before us, I think we had the parking in the back and the parking on Douglas Road. Now the parking on Douglas Road is not there, so I don't know how there's enough parking. I mean, I remember as a member of the building committee that we were required to have, if we were gonna look for sites out of downtown, that they needed to be 14 acres, and that there needed to be 8 acres for the school and 6 acres for parking. That's what we were told. And the 6 acres for parking was so that there would be a parking spot for every employee and a parking spot for every member of the senior class. That, unless that's changed, that's how I remember it. So I don't know what the parking scheme is, and I'm not looking to have that information tonight, and I'm not looking to have it for next week, but I am expecting to have it before May 9th. And so those are the motions as they are, the 5 motions. The matter that was put off this evening that will come up next week, I would expect that when we vote on that what will be presented to us is where is that land that you spoke about tonight? Where will the 22.35 acres come from? With a cost estimate for how much it will cost to develop that land, and any impact that it might have on our ability to secure future grant money from the Environmental Protection and Affairs Agency from the state. That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. We did receive from Assistant City Manager McGovern today a list of items that are going to be worked on during the week of March 13th and the week of March 20th. So I guess the question through you to the manager or Mr. McGovern, a couple of the motions here that Mayor Kennedy speaks of relate to traffic and environmental. So, for instance, during the week of March 13th, we're talking about the ongoing traffic study, existing Lowell High School, and additional traffic study for Collie. So some of, because Councilor Mercia mentioned earlier, she's not interested in spending any money that might already be spent under the current contract. So again, I think these are all good motions to give us additional information so that we can, again, vote next week on that Article 97 vote, but at the same time, have the ancillary costs that we will need by the May 9th, by the May 9th vote. So I'm going to support the motion, but again, I want to thank Mr. McGovern for this information. I do have a question. ELT meeting scheduled to review plans. What does ELT stand? I should know. I know. I'm going to embarrass myself. ELT.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councilor. So the ELT, that was the group that was put together that came up with the educational program.
Okay.
They're actually still working. Right now, they're currently working on a phasing program. If the downtown site was selected, that would be in place, and so that's one of the
Okay.
objectives that they're working on right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, thank you for this information.
Nick Kennedy?
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, I'm not looking for any extra studies or looking for any extra information, and I realize that Skanska may provide some of this information, but I just want to be sure that I have all of this information by May 9th. That's all.
Councilor Leary?
No, I think these are good motions. I think they're also reciprocal to the other location, too. I think we ought to look at that, and I think we should get all that information so we can digest it. Because I think the traffic patterns, what have you, for downtown, obviously, during the construction phase, are equally as important. Also, to follow up on the, what you just said, Mr. McGovern, regarding the other committee meeting, is that open to the public as well, and are those dates listed for people? Because that's the education plan, ultimately, correct? If I'm misunderstanding that, or?
Through you, yes, Council, that was the working group that was put together, I would say somewhere around 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay.
They meet, it's not a regularly scheduled meeting like we have with the school building committee meeting.
Okay. Are those open to the public? Because those are obviously, I mean, we do the physical structure, but it's predicated on whatever the education plan is. I think sometimes we forget that at the end of the day, what we're building is really there because of the education plan. And we already have the education plan, so if there's changes to it, I think the public, because that's really what we're talking about, should be a part of what those discussions are. I know you may not have, it's like a school committee issue, but I think we wouldn't be here talking about the physical if we didn't have what really matters is what we're doing and why the physical has to change.
Well, the plan itself won't change.
Okay.
What they're doing is just how they're going to, they're working
Okay.
on the phasing. But the plan is intact, because that's what the school committee voted on.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Won't change,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Anything else? No? All those opposed, all those in favor, motion passes. That concludes the motion part of the agenda. Under announcements, Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to announce that the Encore Dance Troupe will have its 30th anniversary celebration, and they'll be doing that on Friday, April 7th, 2017, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at 450 Chelmsford Street in Lowell, Mass. And for people who want more information or tickets, I guess you can call 978-275-1823.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
And what would this day be if I didn't say an announcement? But the Greek American Hellenic people are going to have their Greek flag raising on Friday. That's at 11 o'clock at the church, and then they're going to go over to City Hall for the flag raising. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything else? Motion to adjourn. Mayor Kennedy, second by Councilor Samaras. Good night.
10 o'clock in the church.